Quetzalcoatl might have already shown up in episode 2 of the Monarch Legacy of Monsters series. Come along with me on this super thorough analysis of episodes 1 and 2, packed with info and details you might have missed. Welcome back to Nerds Insights, your daily source for all things nerdy. The 17th has finally arrived, and we've got 2 episodes of Monarch Legacy of Monsters available on Apple TV streaming service. And for those wondering about the release time, I honestly don't know. I just woke up this morning, the 17th, and they were already up, so, depending on where you are, it might be available at different times. That's why I can't tell you exactly when, okay? But before we dive into the analysis, drop a comment if you've already watched it or if you haven't and are just here to listen to the analysis. And of course, don't forget to hit like. First off, it starts with the initial 5 minutes of the series, which we've already seen, released by Legendary for us to watch. It's Bill Handa in 1973 on Skull Island, running from this giant spider monster. I don't think it's a kaiju, more like a huge spider monster. And just when he's about to be killed by this creature, this other bizarre crab monster shows up, and they start fighting. During this chaos, Bill Handa throws his briefcase with all his files, which he had recorded and noted, down from Monarch, into the sea, hoping someone might find it. But it turns out both monsters fall into the water, and Bill Handa survives this ordeal, continuing his journey on Skull Island. Right after that, there's a time jump to 2013, where a Japanese fishing vessel, while fishing, ends up catching the briefcase that Bill Handa had dropped into the sea back in 1973. This briefcase is remarkably durable, as none of the files inside got wet and it was still almost intact. The person who found this briefcase will be important for the future of the series. Then, we have the opening sequence, which was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen made by Legendary. An opening filled with references and tributes to Godzilla, indicating that it's a series based on Godzilla. And what I also noticed in this series is that everything revolves around Godzilla, whether it's before or after G-Day. It's all about Godzilla. There might be other monsters involved, but you can expect that it's all about Godzilla. Now the series jumps to April 1st, 2015. And this is another thing you can expect from this series. It constantly jumps in time, going to the past, then to the present, and even further back in the past. It just hasn't gone into the future beyond 2015, at least not yet. We then meet our protagonist, Kate, who is traveling to Japan to find out something about the whereabouts of her father. Her father was a man named Hiroshi, who had disappeared in a plane accident, where no wreckage was ever found. So, she goes to Japan with a key, which belonged to her father's apartment in Japan, to discover something about him. Upon arriving there, she discovers that her father had another family. He had another wife and another son named Kentaro. Everyone is surprised because neither side knew that he had another family. And of course, this was a shock to everyone. Kate doesn't stay long and decides to leave soon. Meanwhile, she has some flashbacks of the day G in San Francisco, and soon after, while she's on the street, an evacuation alert starts. Japan is very prepared for any kaiju attack and has set up defense and evacuation systems. With this, Kentaro and his mother appear and help Kate get to the evacuation site. At the evacuation site, Kate begins to recall everything that happened in San Francisco, and this is a very heavy thing to think about, because, as I've been saying in other videos about Monarch Legacy of Monsters, for us who watched the movie in 2014, it was a wonderful thing, Godzilla arriving and fighting the Mutos and destroying cities. But now we are seeing the human perspective, and it's dramatic. It's dramatic, dramatic. I will say this word several times because we saw that Kate was on a school bus when the attack started. She tried to save the children, but most of them died. So it's something you will carry with you for your entire life. Just imagine yourself in that situation. Imagine, you are there with your family, with your friends, with someone you love, and suddenly an unprecedented monster appears and starts to destroy the city, and it takes away everything you had. It takes what was under your protection. It takes your life along with it, and even though it has gone away, you don't know when it will return and if it will take more from you. So it's a very heavy thing. Man, to imagine that you were there in that situation and suddenly a giant monster, whether it's Godzilla or the Mutos, crushes your house, crushes the car you're in, you're on the street and it crushes someone important to you, and you don't know if this is going to happen again because there's nothing humanity can do to stop it. Do you realize how traumatic? How heavy is this perspective we have of what the day in San Francisco was like? So it's really something that I myself hadn't seen with different eyes when I watched the movie, and it's something totally disturbing, totally traumatic. Humanity lives in fear of it happening again, as it happens again in 2019, as far as we know. So we see that Kate, she has an anxiety attack in which she wants to get out of that place. She wants to do something to vent this fear she's feeling that everything will happen again. But fortunately, it was just a false alarm and everyone goes back to their normal lives. And it's like Kentaro said, what more can they do? Now everyone goes back to their normal lives. just waiting for the monster to appear any day. Now we go back even further in time to exactly 1959, where we have Lieutenant Lee Shaw, Keiko, and Bill Handa on an expedition in Kazakhstan. Upon arriving in Kazakhstan, they want to enter a contaminated area to find out what really happened there. This is their job. While Bill and Keiko are scientists, Shaw takes care of their protection, escorting them to ensure everything goes safely. They even find a boy there, who claims that the contaminated area was all a lie and a story, and they really confirm that it was a lie. There is no radiation in that area. However, they find those eggs of those organisms as we saw in the trailers in spots that were being released out there, as a way to promote the series. Now we travel in time once again back to 2015. Kentaro talks with Kate and takes her to a workplace of her father. There, they discover a secret safe, and inside this safe was Bill Handa's folder. So, that person, the Japanese fisherman who found the folder, was Hiroshi. It was Hiroshi himself who managed to get that folder and kept it from falling into Monarch's hands. Kate and Kentaro are very confused about this secret of their father, and then they introduce a new character named Mei, who is kind of a technology genius. She manages to decrypt the folder and read all of Bill Handa's files. But at the same time, Monarch manages to track the IP in the region where these files were accessed, and sends 2 agents there, Tim and another agent. What confused me was a phrase that a Monarch worker said, that Verdugo wanted to know everything that was happening. I don't really know what Verdugo is, at least I don't remember, but from the way she spoke, it seems to be some kind of special military division of Monarch, which should serve as those who clean up Monarch's dirty laundry, a very secret service, which should not be the one we saw armed behind Kate in the trailers of Monarch Legacy Monsters. While Kate, Kentaro, and Mei are looking at Monarch's files, they find a photo of their grandmother Keiko Miura inside a footprint. Then, we go back once again to 1959, when those eggs start to hatch. Shaw and Keiko try to escape, but Keiko ends up falling and dying. This is how episode 1 of Monarch Legacy of Monsters ends, so let's move directly to episode 2. If you are enjoying this analysis, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I will bring an analysis every week of every episode of Monarch Legacy of Monsters. Alright, subscribe there. I'm waiting. Let's go. Now we go back even further in time to 1952, before the events in Kazakhstan in 1959, where we see that Lieutenant Shaw is assigned to a mission to protect, observe, and report everything that happens in the exploration of the scientist Dr. Miura. It's even funny because he thinks it's actually a guy, and he's surprised to meet Keiko. I find this scene quite amusing. It's also interesting to see that there's kind of this prejudice that existed back then between the Japanese and Americans, and even more so because of a female explorer, so we see that they are really paying attention to these details of the era. There's an extra care taken. They start their exploration, the 2 of them together, in that army jeep. It's also a nice scene to see how well they got along. They really got along quite well. We return to 2015, and Kentaro goes to his father's office and starts destroying everything, until he finds a drawer, and with those keys, the same keys that Kate had, she left them with him, and now he uses these keys and manages to open this drawer, and there he finds more of his father's secret things, including a file that had a photo of Lieutenant Shaw. Along with this folder, there's a file that seems to be a very old tape, really from the 70s, and then Keitaro takes it to his mother and asks her to see what that file is, but she simply tells him to go away and continues reading Monarch's files. And I have to say that I'm really in love with this Mei. Jesus Christ, she's very beautiful. She moved me. I liked her. Going back again to 1952, that's how it is, folks. Get used to it. It's time jumps all the time. Lieutenant Shaw and Dr. Miura are in the forest tracking some radiation signals when suddenly, out of nowhere, Billy appears. We now know that he is Bill Handa, so pay attention to how things are connected. Bill Handa marries Keiko Miura, who then becomes Keiko Handa, as we saw in the first episode. When they are together in the Jeep in 1959, Shaw mentions he never thought about having children and a family. On the other hand, Kate says that she and Bill Handa have a son, but they left him behind in pursuit of something greater, something for humanity, and this son is Hiroshi. That means Hiroshi is a Handa, the son of Bill Handa. That's why Kate and Kentaro mentioned that their grandmother was in the Monarch files, of course, because she is Keiko Handa. So, let's go over it again because it might be a bit confusing. Bill married Keiko, and they both became Handa. Bill Handa and Keiko Handa. They had a son named Hiroshi Handa. Hiroshi Handa had 2 children named Kentaro Handa and Kate Handa, and that's how the Handa family is formed. In other words, Kate and Kentaro are the grandchildren of Bill Handa. In the timeline between 1952 and 1959, Hiroshi was already born, but it's not clear exactly when that happened. Speaking of Hiroshi, there's a scene where his son, Kentaro, is in his room, and there are some small figures on his window. These figures reminded me a lot of the head of the old Gios. I might be going crazy, right? We return again to 2015, where Kate is about to leave for the United States when Tim confronts her. He says he needs the files and that Kate is not in trouble yet. When he mentions that she's not in trouble yet, I think it's related to this Verdugo wanting to go after her, but it also means that this secret organization that cleans up Monarch's dirty laundry hasn't yet taken action. While they are outside, Kate hits Tim in the nose with her cell phone, which was a pretty funny scene. She tries to run away but is soon captured by another agent. While in the car, she starts to struggle, seemingly suffering from claustrophobia. She keeps remembering the day G until she manages to kick the female agent in the jaw and overturns the car. After that, she escapes and heads to the police station. However, the Japanese police don't take her very seriously and say they will put her in contact with the American consulate, but she feels something is very suspicious and wrong at the police station and leaves. Meanwhile, Tim and the other agent go to Kentaro's house. Upon arrival, they simply invade the house, and Kentaro's mother, realizing something strange is happening, tells her son to flee. He escapes, leaving his mother with two highly suspicious Monarch agents. I found it quite surreal that Kentaro just runs away, leaving his mother alone with two agents from a secret organization he's never seen before. I, for one, would never run off with a photo of Shaw in hand and leave my mother behind with two agents from a secret organization, but that's typical of TV shows. It stretched my suspension of disbelief a bit. Also, I have to point out that these two agents are quite clumsy. They can't catch a girl, nor a guy who has no military training and doesn't know how to do anything. When Kentaro is fleeing, he meets up with May and Kate. We see that May is a unique girl, let's say. Not only is she a genius, but she also has some contacts through which she can get fake passports and other things. But Kentaro has another idea. They decide to go after Lieutenant Shaw, who is now Colonel Shaw. When they get there, they see he's in a kind of Monarch-monitored retirement home. Shaw immediately recognizes them. He knows Kentaro Handa and Kate Handa. He reveals that their father didn't die. Something happened, and he might still be alive, and that Monarch is hiding things. It's revealed that the monitored retirement home is more like a prison for retired Monarch agents to control information. Shaw then removes his electronic ankle monitor, showing he's a tough character. He gives the kids 60 seconds to decide whether they'll accept everything Monarch has told them or if they'll seek the truth. I found this really cool and exciting, and as we've seen in the trailers, they're heading to Alaska. And now, we return once again to 1952. After Keiko and Bill Handa decided to stay together, they end up arguing with Lieutenant Shaw, who leaves. As he goes one way, the scientist duo goes another and finds the USS Loudon ship. For those who don't remember, the USS Loudon is a ship that appears in the Monsterverse in 2017 in the movie Kong, Skull Island. It was attacked by a Muto, and Bill Handa was the only survivor. 9 years have passed since he was the last survivor, and now he has found the ship again. He even finds his belongings that he had taken to that ship. However, the strange thing is that this ship was 8,000 kilometers away from where it had been sunk, so something brought that ship here, and as they explore inside the ship, they start to be attacked by a winged kaiju, the same kaiju that we saw in the trailers, and it did some totally bizarre things to the humans. I won't even put that image here because it was really heavy, and a very important thing was that, while the three were still together, Shaw was somewhat mocking Bill Handa's theories and motivations about uncovering the truth through legends and tales people told. One of these was about a dragon, which left a trail of fire or ionized radiation wherever it went. This immediately reminded me of Quetzalcoatl. I don't know if you thought the same. While Bill Handa and Keiko were trapped inside the ship, Lieutenant Shaw saw the trail in the sky and decided to go back to help, and as he returned to help, coincidentally he knew the path where Keiko and Bill Handa had gone, coincidentally knew they had entered that ship, and coincidentally arrived just in time to help. It's a series thing, right? He helps everyone escape, and the three get out of the ship, and as they leave, we get a view of what that Titan was that appeared in the trailers. An ugly Titan, very ugly. I didn't understand what that Titan was. All bizarre, all crazy, and I refuse to believe that the fire trails in the skies were made by that strange Muto. I prefer Quetzalcoatl, and that's how the second episode of Monarch Legacy of Monsters ends. So, tell me, do you want me to make a video just about Easter eggs and curiosities from these first 2 episodes of Monarch Legacy of Monsters? If you do, comment. I'll make the video based on your comments. If there are many comments asking for it, I'll do it. If not, I'll just pretend it didn't exist, okay? So, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything. This week is going to be full of Monarch Legacy of Monsters. Next week too, because we're going to cover everything about this series and everything about the Monsterverse. So, those who are subscribed with notifications on won't miss anything. We're together. Don't forget to take care of yourself, and see you next time.